The great hall of the Dravari Empress Velkara was silent except for the soft hum of distant machines. Tall pillars stretched up to a ceiling lost in shadow, and light from strange crystals scattered soft beams across the polished floor. Every eye in the room was fixed on the center where a human man stood alone. Commander Eli Vance was unlike any being Velkara had ever seen. Humans were rare among the stars, and many called them reckless and wild. Yet here he was, standing calm and steady before the alien queen who ruled this world with an iron will. Velkara's gaze was cold and sharp. She stepped forward, her voice ringing clear and strong in the hall. "Kneel," she commanded. Her words were not a request. They were a demand, the law of the Dominion. Every defeated enemy showed respect this way, bowing down in surrender to their conqueror. Eli looked around, meeting the eyes of Velkara's guards, the noble Dravari lords, and her advisors. He saw suspicion, anger, and hatred. They expected defiance, maybe even a furious refusal. But Eli smiled. Without hesitation, he slowly bent his knees and lowered himself to one knee. The sound of his armor sliding on the smooth floor echoed through the chamber. A quiet murmur spread like wildfire. No one had ever seen a human bow to a Dravari queen before. Velkara stopped, her sharp eyes narrowing in disbelief. "Why?" she asked, voice low but filled with surprise. Eli raised his head and looked directly into her glowing amber eyes. "Because I see a chance," he said simply. The hall was silent again. The guard shifted uneasily. One of Velkara's advisors whispered, "He is mocking us." Velkara did not answer. Instead, she signaled for the guards to stand down. "Bring him to the private chambers," she ordered. "I want to understand this." As Eli was led away through twisting corridors, Velkara remained seated on her throne, pondering the meaning behind his strange gesture. Hours later, in the private room filled with the scent of strange flowers and glowing softly from bioluminescent walls, Velkara faced Eli alone. "You are a prisoner," she reminded him. "Yet you chose to kneel. Why? What game do you play?" Eli smiled again, but this time it was softer, almost gentle. "I am not playing any game, Empress. I choose to kneel because I believe in something more than defeat or pride. I see possibility." Velkara's expression softened, though she did not show it. "Possibility? Explain." The human leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "Your people are proud and strong, but pride can blind. It can make rulers lose sight of what really matters. I kneel not out of fear or weakness, but to remind you that strength is more than power. It is also trust and hope." Velkara listened closely. Many had tried to break her will, to force her to show mercy or weakness, but none had spoken to her like this. "Tell me, Commander," she said. "What do you want from me? Why should I trust a human?" Eli looked down for a moment, then met her gaze. "Because we both want peace. I lead the rebels who fight to end endless war. You lead the Dominion, tired of constant fighting. Together we can find a better way." Velkara stood and walked to a tall window that looked out over the city. The lights of the capital shimmered in the distance. "Peace," she said softly. "Is that what you really seek?" Eli nodded. "Yes. But peace comes not from forcing others to kneel, but from standing side by side." Velkara's mind raced. She was a ruler, trained to control and command. Yet here was a human showing courage by kneeling, not out of weakness, but out of choice. It challenged everything she believed. She turned to face him again. "Very well, Commander Eli Vance. I will give you a chance to prove your words. You will not be executed, but you will remain my prisoner. In time, we will see if your possibility is more than empty hope." Eli stood tall, the same confident grin on his face. "I don't believe in empty hope, Empress. I believe in what we can build together." As the heavy doors closed behind him, Velkara knew the road ahead would be uncertain. But for the first time in many years, a small spark of something new had entered her heart, an unexpected respect for a human who dared to kneel when everyone expected rebellion. Commander Eli Vance was led through the grand corridors of the A Palace. his steps steady but calm. The guards watched him closely, not trusting the human's sudden willingness to kneel before the Empress Velkara. Many whispered among themselves, wondering what tricks this human might have up his sleeve. Inside, a small chamber, Eli was given a simple room with little comfort, but enough space to move freely. Despite being a prisoner, he showed no signs of fear or anger. Instead, he seemed curious about the palace and the strange customs of the Dravari people. Meanwhile, Empress Velkara sat on her throne, deep in thought. She had expected Eli to defy her, to challenge her orders with fire in his eyes. But he had surprised her, and that made her uneasy. Was he hiding something? Was his submission a trick? Her advisors gathered around, voices low but tense. "He must be planning something," said one. "No human surrenders so easily." Another shook his head. "Perhaps he has lost hope. Or maybe this is some kind of weakness." Velkara raised her hand to silence them. "We will see. For now, keep him under watch, but do not harm him." That evening, the Empress sent for Eli to come to her private chambers. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the palace's life support systems. Eli entered calmly and bowed his head slightly, a sign of respect, but his eyes were alert and steady. Velkara studied him. "You say you see possibility where others see only defeat. Tell me, what do you hope to achieve by kneeling to me?" Eli smiled softly. "I hope to show that strength is not only in fighting, but in understanding. I kneel because I choose to listen, not because I am forced." Velkara's eyes narrowed. "You speak as if you know my people and my reign." "I do not know everything," Eli replied, "but I know war has made us enemies for too long. I want to find a way to end the fighting." The Empress leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "You ask for peace, yet you are a rebel. Your people have tried to overthrow my rule. Why should I believe you now?" Eli's voice was calm but firm. "Because I am tired of war too, and because peace requires trust, something that cannot grow if we only see each other as enemies." Velkara was silent for a moment, considering his words. The Dravari people were proud and fierce. Many had died in battles to keep her throne secure. Trust was rare, and peace seemed distant. "Very well," she said finally. "I will allow you some freedom within the palace. Prove to me your intentions are true." Over the next days, Eli was assigned tasks that no prisoner had ever been given. He was sent to meet with lower-ranking officials and diplomats, those who managed daily affairs and disputes among the nobles. The Empress watched closely from a distance, expecting failure or rebellion. But to her surprise, Eli listened carefully to the problems he was given, speaking honestly and respectfully. He suggested solutions that helped ease tensions between rival factions. Slowly, his reputation grew among the palace staff. Some whispered that the human was more than a prisoner, that he was becoming a symbol of hope. One afternoon, Velkara summoned Eli to discuss the palace's many troubles. "You have helped settle disputes that have lasted years," she said. "How do you manage such peace with such little power?" Eli smiled. "I believe that sometimes listening is stronger than commanding. When people feel heard, they are more willing to work together." Velkara's sharp eyes softened. "Your ways are different from mine, but perhaps they are worth learning." Despite her growing respect for Eli, Velkara knew that many in her court were watching carefully. Some nobles whispered that the Empress was weak for trusting a human. Others feared that Eli's influence could threaten her rule. One evening, Velkara stood alone on a balcony overlooking the city lights. The stars sparkled above, silent witnesses to the fragile peace she sought. Eli approached quietly. "Your Majesty," she nodded. "You move through the palace with freedom few prisoners have. Why do you not try to escape or fight back?" Eli looked at the vast city before them. "Because I believe this is the place where change can begin. Not on battlefields, but here, where decisions are made." Velkara looked at him closely. "You surprise me, human. Most would use weakness as a chance to strike. But you offer patience instead." "I have seen enough war," Eli said softly. "It only breaks people. I want to build something stronger." The Empress felt a flicker of something new, a hope she had not known for many years. Eli's willingness to kneel had been unexpected. His patience and wisdom were even more so. But the road ahead was uncertain. Velkhara knew she would have to balance trust with caution. The future of the Dominion, and perhaps many worlds, might depend on this unusual alliance between an alien queen and a human who chose to kneel. Days passed in the palace, each filled with quiet tension and unexpected moments. Commander Eli Vance moved through the corridors with purpose, not as a prisoner, but almost like a guest. His calm presence disturbed many, yet inspired others. Empress Velkhara watched from her throne room as her advisors debated how to handle this strange human who seemed to win favor without force. They whispered about politics, loyalty, and the danger of trusting a rebel. One morning, Velkhara called Eli to her chambers. The room was cool and shadowed, with tall windows showing the bright sky above the city. The Empress sat on a high chair, her piercing eyes fixed on him. "I want to test you," Velkhara said plainly. "Not in battle, but in politics. The factions within my court are divided. Some want war, others want peace. I want to see if you can navigate this." Eli nodded, steady and ready. "I accept your challenge." Velkhara's lips curved into a small smile. "You will be given a mission to negotiate a peaceful settlement between two noble houses that have been in conflict for decades. Success means stability. Failure could mean more bloodshed." The task was difficult. The two houses, the Kalar and the Veshan, were proud and stubborn, each refusing to back down. Their hatred ran deep, built over generations of rivalry. Eli began by meeting each house separately. He listened carefully to their complaints and fears. He did not speak of power or threats. Instead, he asked questions. "What do you want? What do you hope for? What makes you afraid?" Slowly, he learned that both houses wanted security and respect, but were trapped by their own pride and old grudges. With this understanding, Eli arranged a meeting between the leaders of the Kalar and Veshan houses in a neutral hall. The room was tense, filled with guarded eyes and whispered insults. Eli stood between them, calm and steady. "We have all lost too much to hatred," he began. "I am not here to take sides, but to find a way for your people to live in peace. That peace will be stronger if built on respect." At first the nobles scoffed, but Eli continued, reminding them of the future their children could have, a future without war. He suggested compromises that gave each house honor and protection. Hours passed, and slowly the mood shifted. Faces softened, voices lowered. By evening, the leaders shook hands, agreeing to a treaty that promised peace. Word of Eli's success spread quickly. The Empress's court buzzed with surprise and cautious hope. Velkhara summoned Eli again. "You did well," she said. "Few have calmed those houses before. Why do you succeed where others fail?" Eli smiled. "Because I listen, without judgment. Because I believe people want peace, even if pride makes it hard." Velkhara studied him. "You understand more than I expected." As days turned to weeks, Eli's role in the palace grew. He helped resolve small disputes, gave advice, and earned respect from many nobles. Yet, there were still those who distrusted him, whispering warnings of betrayal. One evening, Velkhara met with her closest advisors. "The human moves carefully, gaining power without force," she said. "Some see this as a threat." An older general frowned. "Empress, he is a rebel. His loyalty is to his people, not to you. Trust him at your own risk." Velkhara nodded thoughtfully. "I see his actions, not just his past. So far, he has chosen peace." Later, Velkhara walked through the gardens with Eli. The stars were bright overhead, and the scent of alien flowers filled the air. "You have changed much in a short time," she said softly. "Your patience is not like the fire of my people." Eli looked up. "Sometimes calm is stronger than fire. It builds bridges instead of walls." Velkhara smiled faintly. "I am learning that." Suddenly the peace in the palace was shaken by news of unrest outside the city. Some noble houses refused to accept the growing influence of the Empress and the human advisor. Rumors of rebellion began to spread. Velkara called Eli to her side. "Trouble brews," she said. "We must prepare. Will you stand with me?" Eli nodded firmly. "I do not seek power, but I stand for peace. Together we can protect it." The two stood side by side, knowing the challenges ahead would test their trust and courage. In the quiet moments before dawn, Velkara realized that this human who had knelt when expected to fight was becoming more than a prisoner or advisor. He was becoming a partner in a future she had never imagined. And that future, uncertain but hopeful, was worth fighting for. Not with swords, but with wisdom and trust. The palace buzzed quietly with rumors and unease. Though Commander Eli Vance had earned respect from many, the deeper currents of court politics stirred a restless tension. Noble houses whispered in shadows, plotting their own paths. Velkara knew her reign was fragile beneath the shining surface. One afternoon, Velkara summoned Eli to her private chambers. The walls were decorated with tapestries telling the story of her ancestors, warriors and rulers who shaped the Dominion. The heavy curtains blocked the bright sun outside, casting soft shadows. "Commander," Velkara began, her voice steady but thoughtful, "you have learned much about my people, but do you understand what it means to rule?" Eli looked around the room, taking in the weight of history. "I have seen rulers who command with fear, and others who lead with kindness. But true leadership, I think, means carrying the hopes and fears of many." Velkara nodded slowly. "It is a lonely burden. Every decision can bring peace or destruction. Every action is watched and judged." Eli met her gaze. "You carry that burden well. But sometimes, leaders forget their people's hearts. They become trapped by pride and old ways." Velkara sighed softly. "There are those who seek to overthrow me. Noble houses, Gia. House of my power. If I show weakness, I risk everything." Eli's voice was gentle. "Strength is not just in power or fear. It is also in knowing when to listen and when to change." Velkara looked away for a moment, the hard edge of the ruler softening. "I have lived my life behind this mask of strength. Few know the woman beneath." "Would you show me?" Eli asked quietly. The Empress hesitated, then slowly began to speak of her past, a life of strict training, sacrifices, and endless battles to hold the Dominion together. She told of the loneliness of the throne, the nights filled with worry and the constant need to be strong even when tired. Eli listened without interrupting, understanding the weight she carried. "You are not alone," he said gently. "Even the strongest leaders need allies." Velkara's eyes glistened with something close to gratitude. "You speak as if you know me." "I see more than a ruler," Eli said. "I see a woman who wants to protect her people and find a better way." Their conversation was interrupted by a soft knock. A messenger entered with urgent news. "Empress, the noble houses of Korath and Dralin have sent envoys demanding changes to the trade laws. They threaten to withdraw support if ignored." Velkara's brow furrowed. "These houses test my patience. Their demands are unfair and dangerous." Eli stood. "Perhaps this is an opportunity." Velkara looked surprised. "How?" "Instead of confrontation, invite the envoys for open talks. Show them their voices matter. It may build trust or at least calm the storm." The Empress considered. "A risky move. But peace is often born in risk," Eli said. Velkara agreed. "Very well, prepare for the meeting." The next day, in a grand hall filled with tension, the envoys arrived. They were proud and stern, but Eli's calm presence helped ease the atmosphere. He listened carefully to their concerns, and Velkara spoke openly of her hopes for unity and fairness. The talks lasted long into the evening. Slowly, agreements were made, trade routes remained open, and promises of cooperation were exchanged. After the meeting, Velkara turned to Eli. "You have a way of calming storms, but can such peace last in a court full of ambition and old grudges?" Eli smiled. It is a beginning. Every piece starts with a single step. In the following days, Velkara found herself trusting Eli more than she expected. She shared ideas and fears, and in return he offered honest counsel. Yet the court remained divided. Some nobles plotted quietly, unwilling to accept the growing influence of a human advisor. Velkara knew the balance was delicate. One evening, as they walked through the palace gardens, Velkara spoke softly. "You have changed many minds, but some still see you as a threat." Eli looked at the stars. "Change is never easy, but it is necessary." Velkara nodded. "I wish I could believe that as easily as you do." "You will," Eli said with confidence, "because hope is stronger than fear." Their quiet conversation was interrupted by a sudden message, an urgent warning of a secret meeting among rebellious nobles planning to challenge Velkara's rule. The Empress's face hardened. "They grow bold." Eli stepped forward. "We must act carefully. Force will only fuel the fire," Velkara agreed. "Then we must use what we have: wisdom, trust, and alliances." Together they began to prepare not for battle but for the difficult dance of politics, a game where every word and action could tip the balance. Beneath her mask of strength, Velkara felt a new kind of power growing, a partnership with a human who had once knelt but now stood beside her, ready to face the challenges ahead. The palace was alive with whispers and cautious glances. News of Commander Eli Vance's growing role had spread beyond the marble halls, reaching even the ears of the most stubborn nobles. Many did not like the idea of a human, once a rebel, becoming an advisor to the Empress Velkara. But the Empress had made her decision. One morning, Velkara summoned Eli to the great chamber where the court gathered. The nobles' faces were a mixture of surprise and suspicion as she spoke. "Today," Velkara announced, "I name Commander Eli Vance my strategic advisor." A heavy silence filled the room. Some lords exchanged uneasy looks. Others whispered in disbelief. A few dared to applaud quietly, impressed by the bold move. Eli stepped forward, bowing his head respectfully. "I am honored to serve, Your Majesty. I pledge to work for the peace and prosperity of the Dominion." Velkara's gaze swept across the room. "This alliance is not a weakness, but a strength. We must face the challenges ahead together." The weeks that followed were filled with careful planning and quiet cooperation. Eli studied the complex politics of the Dominion, learning the names, ambitions, and fears of the noble houses. He used his unique perspective to suggest solutions that balanced tradition with change. Together, Velkara and Eli uncovered hidden plots against the throne. Some nobles hoped to use the unrest to seize power for themselves. The Empress's spies brought word of secret meetings and whispered betrayals. Velkara called a private council. "We must act swiftly but wisely. If we strike too hard, we risk dividing the Dominion further." Eli nodded. "We can expose the plots without bloodshed. Truth and diplomacy can be powerful tools." Using careful intelligence, they arranged a gathering of nobles under the pretense of a grand celebration. Invitations were sent far and wide, including to those suspected of rebellion. The day of the event arrived. The palace shimmered with decorations, and the air buzzed with excitement and caution. During the feast, Velkara and Eli revealed the evidence of the conspiracies. Nobles gasped as proof was shown: secret messages, plans, and alliances against the Empress. Some accused others loudly, while others sat in stunned silence. Velkara's firm voice quieted the hall. "We are one Dominion," she said. "Disunity only weakens us. Let this be a turning point." Eli added, "We offer a chance for peace and cooperation. Those willing to choose unity will find a place at the table." Slowly, tension began to ease. Some conspirators admitted their mistakes and pledged loyalty. Others quietly left the court. Velkara felt a cautious hope. This was not complete victory, but a step toward lasting peace. In private, she spoke to Eli. "Your insight has saved me from many dangers." Eli smiled. "I am here because I believe in this future. Your willingness to listen made it possible." Their partnership was becoming a symbol of change. Stories spread of the empress who trusted a human, and the human who served an alien queen. But challenges remained. The old ways were hard to change, and not all nobles were ready to accept this new path. One evening, Velkara invited Eli to walk with her in the palace gardens. The stars twinkled above and the night air was cool. "You have taught me much," she said quietly. "But I wonder, can this fragile peace last?" Eli looked at the horizon. Peace is like a garden. It needs care, patience, and sometimes sacrifice. But with time it can grow strong. Velkara nodded. "Then we will tend this garden together." As they stood side by side, the future seemed full of promise. The empress who once ruled alone was now willing to share her power with a human who had chosen to kneel, not out of weakness, but out of hope. The palace felt different now, filled with quiet hope and new purpose. Velkara and Eli had faced many challenges, and their alliance had surprised even the most cautious nobles. But the future still held dangers, and both knew the peace they worked for was fragile. One morning, urgent, news arrived. A group of rebellious nobles had gathered outside the city, preparing to challenge Velkara's rule. Their forces were growing, and if left unchecked, they could start a civil war. Velkara stood tall in her war room, the maps of the Dominion spread before her. Her advisors looked tense, but her eyes held calm determination. "We cannot let this rebellion grow," she said firmly. "But we must avoid needless bloodshed." Eli stepped forward. "We have another option. Let us meet with the leaders of the rebellion, offer them a chance to join us, not as enemies, but as partners." Some advisors shook their heads. "They are traitors. They will not listen." Velkara met Eli's gaze. "Peace often comes from courage, not force. We will try." The decision was made. Eli and a small group of trusted guards traveled to meet the rebels in a neutral valley. The air was tense as they approached the camp, surrounded by armed guards and watchful eyes. Eli raised his hands in peace. "We come not to fight, but to listen." The rebel leader, a proud noble named Kale, stepped forward. His eyes were fierce, but Eli saw doubt within. "What do you want, human?" Kale demanded. "Peace," Eli replied simply. "A future where we all share power and prosperity." Kyle laughed bitterly. "Peace? After years of war and betrayal?" Eli nodded. "I understand your pain, but fighting will only bring more loss. We offer a chance to build something new, together." Kale looked at his followers, then back at Eli. Slowly, he lowered his weapon. "Speak your terms." The talks lasted days. Velkara sent envoys and gifts to show her sincerity. Slowly, walls of anger began to crumble. Finally, Kale agreed to lay down arms and support the empress with promises of fair treatment and a voice in the council. The return to the capital was triumphant but cautious. Many nobles watched carefully, unsure if the peace would hold. Velkara greeted Kyle and his followers, welcoming them with open arms. "This is the beginning of a new legacy," she said. Eli stood beside her, feeling the weight and hope of the moment. But peace was more than the absence of war. It was trust, respect, and shared dreams. In the weeks that followed, Velkara and Eli worked to rebuild the Dominion, creating new laws that valued all voices. They visited towns and cities, listening to people's hopes and concerns. Velkara found strength not just in power, but in connection. She saw her people in a new light, not as subjects, but as partners. One evening, as they walked through the palace gardens, Velkara spoke softly. "I once thought ruling meant standing above all. Now I see it means standing with others." Eli smiled. "You have grown into a true leader." She looked at him with gratitude. "And you, a true friend." Their bond had deepened beyond politics. Two leaders from different worlds united by a vision, yet the future still held mysteries. The stars above twinkled with endless possibilities. Velkara knew challenges would come, but with Eli by her side, she felt ready. Together, they would build a dominion where hope and unity thrived. And so, from the unexpected kneel of a human rose a legacy that would inspire generations, a legacy of strength through trust and peace through courage. The grand hall of the palace was filled with light from towering windows. Nobles from across the Dominion had gathered once again, not for battle or rebellion, but for a ceremony unlike any before. Empress Velcara stood tall on her throne, her eyes scanning the crowd. Beside her, Commander Eli Vance stood quietly, no longer a prisoner but an honored partner. The air was thick with anticipation. For years Velcara had ruled alone, her word absolute. But those days had changed. The time had come to show her people a new way, one where strength was shared and trust was earned. Today, Velcara began, her voice strong and clear, we mark a new chapter for our dominion, one born not of conquest, but of unity. She turned to Eli, who met her gaze with a steady smile. Commander Eli Vance, she continued, once a rebel, now a trusted advisor and friend. Together we have faced challenges, uncovered plots and healed old wounds. Together we have built hope where there was despair. A murmur of approval rose among the nobles. Velcara raised her hand, and the hall fell silent. From this day forward, the Dominion will no longer be ruled by fear or pride alone. We will stand together, alien and human, noble and commoner alike. We will listen, learn, and grow. Eli stepped forward. I am honored to serve alongside the Empress. I believe in a future where every voice matters, where peace is not just a dream but a reality. The ceremony continued with the signing of new laws, laws that guaranteed rights and respect to all citizens. Representatives from each noble house pledged loyalty not only to Velcara but to the shared vision of the Dominion. Outside the palace, celebrations erupted. People danced in the streets, their faces alight with hope. For the first time in many years, fear and suspicion gave way to joy. Later that evening, Velcara and Eli stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The stars shone brightly, and the cool night breeze carried the sounds of laughter and music. You have changed my world, Velcara said softly. Eli smiled. And you have changed mine. She looked at him thoughtfully. I once believed that power was about standing above others. Now I know it is about standing with them. Eli nodded. True strength comes from partnership. The Empress took a deep breath, feeling a lightness she had not known before. The journey had been long and difficult, but worth every step. Thank you for kneeling, she said quietly. Eli grinned. I knelt not in surrender, but in hope. Their eyes met, and in that moment, the walls between worlds seemed to fade. Two leaders, different in origin but united in purpose, stood ready to face the future together. As the celebrations continued below, Velcara and Eli knew the road ahead would still hold challenges, but they also knew that, with trust and courage, they could overcome anything. The Dominion had begun a new era, one where hope was stronger than fear, and unity was the greatest power of all.